Hello, and welcome to the Absolute Beginner Guitar Lesson Series. My name is Oliver. I hope you have your guitar out, tuned up to standard pitch, and also I hope you have a notebook or binder, or at the very minimum, a piece of paper and something to write on. We're going to be referring to the scale tone chords in the key of C major. So if you have those written down and you don't have them memorized, we're not going to be spending a bunch of time discussing specific fingerings and where to put your fingers. We have established a set of chords and we are starting to work with those chords. So this is not about that process of learning the chords. If you don't know the chords, you should go back and watch the previous lessons. Today's lesson is the second lesson in a series of lessons that are going to be centered around chord voicing. And in the last lesson, which was a whiteboard lesson, we introduced chord inversions. We learned what they were, and we learned that the different inversions have names for them. But more importantly, we came to see how the chord fingerings that we've been working with are just inversions. And that allows us to play the same chord in several different ways. And we kind of looked at those a little bit more closely to see specifically what was going on when we were running each set of fingerings. So today what we want to do is we want to get on the instrument. We want to start getting into chord voicing. And chord voicing, I'll define chord voicing as using chord fingerings or chord inversions to, first of all, make our playing more interesting. And secondly, to help make our playing easier. So that's what we're going to be studying with chord voicing. And today we're going to start with the first part of that. And we're just going to sort of look at how using chord voicing can make your playing more interesting. So I want to illustrate that with a very simple illustration of it, if you will. Let's say we have to play the C major chord followed by the D minor chord. Well, the first thing we need to do is we need to find a C major chord. So let's say that you decide to find the C major chord with its root note on the first fret of the B string. And you apply that open string fingering. Actually the first one that we learned in the lesson series. And you get your C major chord. Well, in our study of our chord fingerings that had root notes on the B string, we learned that to play the D minor chord, all we really needed to do was move this root note up that's on the B string up a step and find the D root note, and then we would apply our minor chord fingering. So now we have D minor. Simple enough. But at this point, we need to stop and we need to understand something. And that is that we have more than one way to play the D minor chord. So what I could have done is, instead of playing the D minor chord with the root note on the B string, I could have opted to choose a different fingering. So let's say I opted to choose a fingering where my root note was on the G string. I can locate the D up at the 7th fret of the G string. And the chord is D minor, and I would apply my minor chord fingering, and now I have D minor. So let's just listen to it played with the two different chords, and let's listen to the difference in how it sounds. So let's go back to the original way we played it. We played the C, and then we just moved up and played the D minor with the root note on the B string. And the second time we played the C, we opted for a different minor, D minor, we chose a root note that is on the G string. So we chose to find the D minor at the 7th fret of the G string, and we played our D minor chord. Now, I hope that you can hear there's a difference in the sound between this D minor chord and this D minor chord. They're both the same chord in terms of notes, but the inversion changes the way the chord sounds. And this is what we're talking about when we talk about using chord voicing to make our playing more interesting. We could have also chose our D minor chord fingering that has its root note on the E string. So then we would locate our root note D at the 10th fret of the E string and apply our minor chord fingering. And now we have D minor. So as you can see, when we move from the C to the D minor, we have lots of options. So I hope you can hear the differences when I played each D minor chord. And the simple fact is, I could have chosen any of the 4 C major chord fingerings that I know to start with. I could have chose to stick with the B string and played my root note at the 13th fret of the B string, and this becomes my C. And then if I chose to go to, say, stay on the B string, now I'd have to go down to the 3rd fret to find the D note, and then I have this. So now you can hear the contrast between when we start up with this C that's significantly higher in pitch, and then we move down in pitch to this D. So what I'm sort of getting at is, when we really start looking at it, our options are only limited to our knowledge of different ways to play the chord. What I want to do is I want to propose an exercise, or 2 exercises if you want to call it that, that will help us to begin to be able to recognize these options a little bit faster and work with them. And what we're going to do here is we're going to play each of the scale tone chords, but we're going to play each chord in the different ways that we know how to play it. And so what we're going to do, if we break this down, we know chords that have root notes on the G string, root notes that are on the B string, and root notes that are on the E string. And these are the chords we're going to be using. I'm going to start with the root note on the G string, and I'm going to start with the C major chord. So I'm going to find my root note C at the 5th fret of the G string, and then I'm going to apply my major chord fingering, and now I have my C major chord. Now from here I want to go to the C major chord that has its root note on the B string. So now I must recognize that C at the 1st fret and switch to this C major chord. Now, the thing to remember is when we get to the root notes on the B string, with the C chord, we also have another C chord root note at the 13th fret. So I'm going to play that fingering as well. And finally, I'm going to play my root note E string fingering. So now I must find the root note C on the E string, and I can find that at the 8th fret, and I'm going to apply my major chord fingering. So this is the basic exercise. And what we want to do is we want to play through the scale tone chords exactly like this. So when we start with the C major, and we find all the different ways that we can play our C major, when we finish, we go back to the G string and we find the D minor chord. So now we're challenged to find the D root note, and And then now we play the D minor chord with the root note on the B string. And then from there I'm going to play the D minor that has the root note on the E string. And I want you to do this for every scale tone chord up to the A minor chord. And that's the first level. And then what we want to do is we want to reverse the order in which we do them. So now I change my sequence around. So now I'm going to start with the chord that has the root note on the E string, and then I'm going to go to the chord that has the root note on the B string, and then I'm going to go to the chord that has the root note on the G string. So I just basically start with the C root note on the E string, and then I proceed to the C chords that I know with root notes on the B string. And then finally I play my C chord with the root note on the G string. And then from there I would go to A minor with its root note on the E string, because we're not going to play the B, so we're going to go from C to A minor. And now I have to find my A minor chord on the B with the root note on the B string. And finally my A minor chord with the root note on the G string. And I'm going to play my way in descending order. I'm going to play each one of those chords the 3 different ways. So the second level of this exercise is what we're going to do is we're going to play through the scale tone chords, starting with the 1 chord, which in this case is the C major, and we're going to play up to the 6th chord, which is the A minor. However, this time we're going to switch our root note. We're going to keep switching our root notes to different strings, but we're going to play the various chords in order. We're not going to play the C chord 3 times. So just as an illustration, if I decide I'm going to start on the G string, and then I'm going to go to the root note on the B string, and then the root note on the E string, I'll start with my C chord with its root note at the 5th fret on the G string. So I have my C major chord. My next chord is D minor. However, I must move my root note to the B string. So now I need to locate that D root note on the B string and play my D minor chord. My next chord is E minor. So I need to play the root note on the E string. So remember, we have 2 versions of the E minor chord with the root note on the E string. So first I'll play the open string version, and then I'll go up and I will play the E minor at the 12th fret. And then from here, I'm going to go back, I'm going to go to F major. However, now I'm going to go back to the G string for my root note. So now I got to find my root note on the G string, and I can find that at the 10th fret of the G string. And now I have my F major. And from here I need G major with the root note on the B string. So I find my G root note on the B string, and I play my G major chord. And finally I'm going to finish up with A minor. And I need the root note to be on the E string. So I need to locate the A note at the 5th fret of the E string. And now I play my A minor chord. So this is the next level of the exercise. And of course, what I want you to do is, once you can do it the way that I just demonstrated, I want you to sort of reverse the order. And the important thing to understand is not exactly to do it exactly the same way I did it, because you can switch this around and you can make your strings order in any way you want. So put in your time, put in your work, and I hope to see you there. Peace.